Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pineapple Headache.
Yes,
Um, yes. So here I am, Madison, with my co-host.
Christienne.
We are going to talk about something lighthearted today, but before we get into that, we just wanted to acknowledge what happened on March 16th in Atlanta with the shooting, which was definitely a hate incident targeting Asian American women, which we did talk about, like racism against Asian Americans and all the increase in hate incidents and stuff in the past year already, and so we're still like obviously like processing all that and stuff too. So we wanted to talk about something more lighthearted, but was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, and if you wanted to know more about these Asian American hate crimes that have been happening, go seek out resources and information to help you get a better idea of what's been happening. If you want, you can also listen to our podcast episode about how we
Mm-hmm.
go into the history of racism against Asian Americans leading up to
Mm-hmm.
the racism that's happened during coronavirus. Yeah, so, educate yourself. Also take care of yourself during this time.
Because this is the 13th episode, before like weeks ago, I had made Christian
It's
agree that
unlucky.
the
It's
no,
bad
it's
luck. This is our bad luck episode. That's what Madison wanted to
it's
say.
our bad luck episode, but 13 also means a different thing. And this is where everybody will immediately start judging me probably because 13 symbolizes Taylor Swift, who everybody knows I became obsessed with last year, but I also made
Yeah.
other people get obsessed with.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today. I always get like self-conscious about how much I've become obsessed with her and her music in the last year because it's just I feel like she's just very much a very aggressively white woman in media, which I get, and I still think that. I thought that before, and I think that still now. But for anybody who did want to hear about my whole journey into that, here we are.
Wow.
But I think Christienne was the one here who actually listened to her more before than I ever did.
Oh, okay. Um, okay, I guess we're gonna start with that. Okay.
Well, because it's like chronological, kind of.
I was a Taylor Swift fan back in my childhood days. I
Yeah.
was a big fan of her Fearless and Speak Now albums when they came out, and I still uphold them to be really good albums to this day. And every time I listen to
Mm-hmm.
them, I just get a touch of nostalgia because back in the
Mm.
day, we were all living a very internalized love story like Taylor did.
Like You Belong With Me.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the music video though, it's like her playing the mean girl and her playing her nerdy self and they're talking through the window with that guy from
Yes.
The Hannah Montana movie. Yeah. Yeah, I used to really like Taylor Swift. Like I learned her songs on the piano because
Oh my gosh, yes.
I had the
You had like a
songbook.
book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I learned how to play it, which like honestly her songs are really easy to play because they're just four chords.
They literally are.
So,
Oh my
I
god.
mean, it
She
wasn't
uses the
hard to
same
play,
four
but like
chords.
sometimes I just needed to like have a moment and just sing it
Have
out.
like a nice high school girl moment.
Yeah, I really liked her albums up until Red. I remember I got that album for Christmas. But yeah, I really liked Red.
That country and pop mashup.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that era of Taylor Swift, and then over time it just kind of dwindled down, and then I guess Madison picked it back up after that.
Yeah.
I just have to mention, I think my favorite song out of the Red album was State of Grace.
Oh my god, yes. Okay, like the regular one or the acoustic one?
It's been a while since I've listened to the acoustic one, but I'm just gonna say the regular one for now.
I like the regular one. It's a jam.
Okay, I thought you were like
I
testing me or
think
something.
no, I like because it's like I like both like both versions, but I like the regular one because it's like a jam. Also, I feel like it's a really good first song on an album.
Mm-hmm. And
Sets the
then
mood.
let's see, what were my favorite songs from Fearless?
Well, because then there's like Fearless, and then when she did like the platinum version, she like added like 5 or 6
Yeah,
songs at the beginning too. So like there's
I
also
I
that.
really like Forever and Always.
Yes, Joe
And
Jonas did that.
yeah, and I really like I really like the song. I think I also really like Tell Me Why. But Forever and Always, I think, was my top favorite song from that album.
I'm excited to hear it re-recorded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because in case anybody was unaware, Fearless is the re-recorded version of Fearless with current Taylor is coming out on April 9th. So if you're ever going to stream Love Story or any of the big hits again, make sure to do the newer versions.
Yeah. And then Speak Now. I like the song Enchanted.
Yes.
And Long Live.
Okay, Enchanted, I think we talked about right with the whole Owl City.
Because Owl City had that. I remember Owl City had the whole duet as a response back to, and I was just like, I didn't know what was going on behind that.
Oh my god, yeah, okay.
Doing that.
I was like not into Taylor back when that happened, but because what happened with Enchanted was because she wrote it about Owl City Guy, and then he was like, oh my god, this is about me, and then he like wrote a blog post where he was like, I see your song, Taylor, and I know it's about me, and then for Valentine's Day, I think the following year, he dropped his version where he covered it, and he added like more lyrics, like he was like, Taylor, I'm so in love with you and stuff, and I heard that version in like an AMV or something back then.
He sounds like
his
voice kind of sounds like, like an AMV. He's like, I'm so enchanted to meet you. Yeah. Like it just
That's literally what he sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so then I heard his version, and then this is back in the day of, when you'd like go onto YouTube to listen to music, you go search like such and such song lyrics and then like use that to listen to it. So I was listening to his version with the lyric video or something like within a year or two of that when that whole thing had happened, and like so then I was reading the whole story about it in the YouTube comments, because then people were all like, did you know like this is Taylor's song originally for him, and then he wrote it but he sang it back to her and stuff, but this was so soon to when it happened that it was like fresh, and then in reality now it's been almost like I don't know, like 8 or 9 years, and she never responded.
Well, I mean, like, how would you respond? Be like,
I don't know. Well, because then I think since he did it, because Speak Now came out like months before he dropped his on Valentine's Day, so I think by the time that he dropped his, she was in a relationship with someone else. But, so that's unfortunate. But now that she's re-recording everything, I feel like she's gonna have to, at some point, even if it's just mentally, like, acknowledge that happened. And that this is about him.
Yeah, I
mean,
responded. I would love to hear kind of like a commentary or like a behind the scenes to be like, I remember.
Yeah.
Like what happened with this song.
Yeah, but that whole story.
Yeah, like let us know. Like, why is Taylor Swift re-recording all of her songs?
Oh my god. Yes. Okay. So
what's the tea?
This is like
this.
So there's a lot of tea to this. Because it's like I feel like Taylor Swift just gets like criticized a lot. Sometimes unfairly, sometimes fairly, and it's like I feel like with just 2000s female celebrity culture, kind of that hangover of it, we've kind of gotten to a point where we don't always like take problems with female celebrities like seriously and stuff because they're just like rich, white, and famous or whatever. But I feel like this is an actual like issue that the fact that it can happen to someone who's that big of an artist just speaks to how many problems are like in the music industry. But for those who are unaware, Taylor Swift is in the middle of re-recording her first 6 albums, which is basically all the songs for people our age. That's like, all those hits we remember from like middle school, from like Love Story, You Belong to Me, White Horse, 15, those are all on Fearless. Like, so basically her first 6 albums, which the last of that is Reputation, and to put it into context, Folklore, that came out last summer, that was her 8th album, and then Evermore was in her 9th. So she's made 3 other albums since then that she actually owns herself because she changed record labels between. But so basically what happened was right when she was like a teenager and she signed to her first record label, it was a kind of an up-and-coming company called Big Machine Records, and it was owned by this dude, or it was run by this dude named Scott Borchetta. So she was, I think, 15 when she signed with them, which this is already, like, a really common thing in the music industry that's happened to tons of other artists as well, where it's, like, when you're a teenager and you're signing, like, there's not, like, it's very easy that they're gonna basically, like, take advantage of you and, like, sneak things into your contract because you're a teenager, so you and your family might not know any better yet because you you're stepping into a whole new world.
Right. I mean, you're gonna
And
be
that
famous. Like the fame,
yes,
the ability to make music professionally, get paid, the
yes,
dream.
yes, all of that. But so that was teenage Taylor's thoughts when she signed to this label. And so obviously we all know how successful she was pretty soon, especially with Fearless. That's like her, I think, second best selling album after 1989, and it was the first album she had that won Album of the Year at the Grammys. And so, like, obviously, since she signed to this little label, like, it basically blew their label up. So she really was the one, like, her career jump started this entire, like, record label. But, oh, I guess I should, okay, the thing that's under dispute right now is the master recording. So what that means is, like, if you're an artist, like, once you record, like, you own the rights to when you write your song. Like, that you wrote those lyrics, you wrote it, you own those words. But in terms of the actual, like, production, like, when you go into the studio and you record it, and then they mix it, and then they put it on the album, and then, like, it gets played on the radio, it gets, like, played at, like, events, it gets played on TV, like, that's the master recording. And so her record label owns all the master recordings for all of her first 6 albums. So obviously they were, like, I was reading earlier that her music catalog alone at Big Machine Records was making, like, 80% of their income at one point. Like, 80% of the money they were making was just her music. And so she had this contract with them where it was like they own that. And then so as she was starting to get bigger, I think her and her family were kind of like, we should be the ones who own that, so she can have, like, that, like, it's her music, essentially.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so she kept trying to, like, buy them, I think, in the later years, in the last few years of her contract. The negotiations just never worked out, and they were very, like, hesitant to sell them to her and stuff. And also, like, they just weren't the best, like, label for her. Like the song we mentioned, Enchanted, that's on the album Speak Now, and that was the song that she wanted to center the whole album around. Like, Speak Now was supposed to be Enchanted, but then Scott Burch had to, like, mansplain to music to her to be like, Taylor, you need to get rid of your fairy tales and, like, be serious. You need to call it Speak Now, blah, blah. So, like, she was also having, like, these men. Yeah, she was, like, well, at that point, she was, like, 20, so she was, and this was, like, after all of her success for Fearless, so I'd imagine she probably knows, like, how to do music. But Scott Burch was like, no, Taylor, that's some childhood fairy tale stuff. Like, you need to be an adult now, blah, blah, blah. And then, like, when she, everybody knows, like, Red was, like, kind of country, kind of pop. And after, Red lost at the Grammys when it was up for Album of the Year, she went home and started working on 1989. She was like, I'm going full pop. She had to fight, like, Scott and Big Machine and all of them. She had to, like, fight them just to be able to do a full pop album, because they were like, no, that's dumb. Like, why would you want to do that? So, like, they were also very limiting of her creativity. They owned her masters and wouldn't sell them to her. So then her contract finally ended in, I think, 2018 or so. So, because of all that drama and the fact that her contract was over, she was like, okay, I'm moving on with my life. And she then signed to Republic Records, which is part of, like, Universal Music Group, because everything is a conglomerate in entertainment, as always. So then she signed there, but then the reason that this got especially dramatic, because she had accepted when she changed labels. She was like, okay, I can't get my masters back, they're just gonna be sold off to somebody else eventually, and, like, I'm just gonna have to move on and make new music. Because she also was saying that when she was in negotiations before she left Big Machine Records, like, they were offering these, like, really weird contracts to her where they were like, okay, sign for, like, 10 more years, and for every new album, they're like, for every new album you make for us, you can own it, and that'll earn you one of your old albums back. So it's like, if you make 6 more albums for us, like your 7th album, that'll get you back your self-titled album. Your 8th album, that'll get you back Fearless. Like, it was, they were trying to get her to do, like, that kind of situation. So she was like,
sketch.
No thanks. So then she left. But so then she was like, okay, I'm gonna have to let go of my masters. But then in summer 2019, it was announced that Scooter Braun, who's a very key figure in this whole thing now,
Justin Bieber
bought. Yeah, so Scooter Braun is a very, like, A-list talent manager. He manages Justin Bieber. Mm-hmm. He also manages Kanye. He also manages Ariana Grande, so, like, those level of celebrities.
High tier.
Yes, high tier. And then he bought this whole record label, Big Machine. And Taylor was just like, what the hell? Like, she felt completely betrayed. And as we all might remember, in 2016, there was that whole thing where Kanye released his song. Well, we all know, like, Kanye and Taylor at the 2009 VMAs, he interrupted her speech, and they just kind of had a very tumultuous public relationship after that. And then he released that song Famous in 2016, where, like, he says this line about how he's like, I think me and Taylor might still have sex, and then he's like, I made that bitch famous, and then like Taylor was like, I didn't consent to this line, and then Kim Kardashian was like, yes you did, I illegally recorded your phone conversation.
I remember
And
that was
yes,
thing.
okay, so that whole thing, which quietly, and I did not realize this until later last year, it was very quietly finally officially resolved like last March, like at the beginning, like the month the pandemic started. Like somebody, how that whole phone conversation actually leaked, and it proved that Taylor literally did not consent to the line that she was talking about, which was him calling her a bitch and saying he made her famous, which is what she was talking about. So just in case anybody was not sure about that whole thing, yes, Taylor was innocent, but obviously, as mentioned, Kanye was a big part of that, and Taylor had that beef with him, and his manager is Scooter Braun. And then like when Taylor was getting canceled on the internet, Justin Bieber was like posting stuff also like making fun of her. So like Scooter was basically like egging on his clients to like publicly shame Taylor when that whole stuff was happening in 2016. So like, you know, put yourself in her shoes. Like imagine that person who's kind of playing this orchestral role in your very public like downfall on social media now owns your music. That's like some of your biggest hits. Like we all know like probably like just 10 Taylor Swift songs that are in that like batch that he owns. So then she like made a very like she made a whole Tumblr post where she was like, oh my god, like can't believe this happened, like Scott betrayed me, he knew, like because she was like, anytime I talked to Scott Borchetta about Scooter Braun before, I was literally always in tears, like I'm like this, he was always causing me this pain, and now he owns all my music. So then in August of 2019, that was like right before Taylor released Lover, around that time, she was like, I'm just gonna re-record all 6 of my first albums with my new record label so that I can just own new masters, because like, so she's trying to re-record them to make them kind of sound like as close to the original as possible. Like for anybody who's heard the new Taylor's version of Love Story, it sounds really stinking similar.
I have to say that when I first heard this song, I texted Madison, I was like, I can't hear a difference. But then when Madison started to go into it, I was like, you know what? I can hear like the better breath control and like the maturity in the voice now.
Like it's like very subtle and very it's just mainly just very subtle improvements, just because like I don't think Taylor's main talent has ever been vocals, especially in her early career. I think she's really a songwriter, but now that her vocals have improved a lot, I think that's also just going to really improve her old songs and stuff. So that is why she's recording everything now. But then the last update to the quote-unquote bad guys side of the story was last October. Out of nowhere, this company called Shamrock Holdings, which it's some financial jargon that I don't remember what their deal is, but they're somehow loosely within the whole Disney ecosystem. They bought Taylor's masters from Scooter, so she was like, great, my master recordings have been sold behind my back again without me being involved. And so then the news of that transaction broke first without any like Taylor saying anything, and everybody was like, is this like to get them back to her, like what is this? But then she came out and was like, I didn't know that was happening, because I guess Shamrock Holdings said that when they were negotiating with Scooter Braun, he told them that they were not allowed to contact Taylor to tell her that they were in negotiations for her masters. And then Taylor said that Scooter had actually offered to sell them back to her like earlier that during the pandemic as like a add-on, like a condition that she had to do. She had to basically sign an NDA that said that she would never say anything bad about Scooter Braun ever again. Which according to Taylor Swift's legal team, like the lawyers, they were like, this is the kind of like thing you see, like contract you see like used when like, you know, like rapists are trying to silence like their victims and stuff like that, where it's like like somebody in power is trying to like quiet somebody who's trying to call them out and stuff. there was that. So she was like, well, so I couldn't do that. And then Shamrock Holdings was like, Taylor, we couldn't tell you that we were buying them, but now we bought them, so do you want to collab? And she was like, because part of the deal was that even though he sold them to that company, he was still going to get a chunk of the profit they would make for, every Spotify stream, every time it's used somewhere, every time it plays on the radio. Some of that money would still go back to Scooter Braun. So she was like, after all this bullshit, I don't want a single cent of anything I'm doing to go back to him. So then she was just like, I'm sorry, I cannot work with you. So I'm just going to go back to focusing on my re-recordings and live my life. So that is why now we are getting Fearless re-recorded next month. And then over last weekend, I think, this new trailer for this, I guess they're reviving Spirit, the horse movie.
Oh, I've heard things about this movie, but yes, go on. Go ahead with the Taylor Swift stuff.
Well, who makes DreamWorks? I think they had made it a show first. Like, they had a Spirit show on Netflix or something. But I guess now they're making a movie that's coming out in June, and Wildest Dreams Taylor's version was in the trailer. So I guess that means 1989 is coming next. Because another thing about Taylor, as I've learned in the last year following her, is that she likes to communicate with secrets and Easter eggs and be very sneaky all the time. So nobody knows, there's no public information about like her timeline for these re-recordings or like anything besides the fact that Fearless is coming out next month. Like, we don't even know what order she's going in. Like, everyone thought she would just go in like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but she's starting with 2, and now if she goes to 1989, she's skipping to 5.
I think it's kind of interesting though that like whenever Taylor Swift like posts anything, like I hear it from you where you're like, okay, so the fans are speculating that this is gonna happen, and then usually I don't know if it ever actually comes true, because I remember the time when it was something regarding Paul McCartney. And you're like, oh my god, is it a collab between the two? And then it was.
That's what we all thought. It was the Rolling Stone joint article. Like, literally, that's like a whole meme now. Like, Taylor's fans are just clowns all the time because we're all, like, everyone's just looking for clues and everything, because she like hides stuff like all the time. Like, because like for the Taylor Swift and Paul McCartney thing, Paul McCartney randomly tweeted 13 dice emojis once, like in the fall, and everybody was like, because he had a new album coming out, and like the whole theme of it and all the visuals was like dice. So everybody was like, why did he do 13 dice? Because the only other person out here who really tweets 13 emojis at a time is Taylor. So everybody was like, a collab for his album?
I mean, it would bring like two of your like musical worlds together, because you are a Beatles fan.
Yes, it would. I was really hoping for that, but no, because she also, it makes sense because she's like BFFs with like Stella McCartney, who's a fashion designer and is Paul McCartney's daughter. So I was like, oh yeah, that could work. But no, it was just a Rolling Stone collab. But like, just as an example, like there's two, like, for the kinds of things she like sneaks. Like, so one time, like, when was this? Like back in like the fall. So this was a couple months after Folklore came out. And as everybody might remember, Evermore was also a surprise drop, right? So nobody was expecting another album, because we literally just got an album like, 3 months before? So her like merch store, they sent this email to like some of the like people, like to like people who like buy from there a lot, who I guess like are more like the loyal customers, like, here's a promo code like thing. So they send this promo code, and it's Wreck My Plans, and everybody was like, wow, did they just get the words wrong from like the song August, which is on Folklore? Because she has this whole lyric about like, oh, cancel my plans just in case you call. So everybody was like, is that what this is supposed to be referencing? Like, she didn't even get the lyrics right. LOL. Evermore drops. What's in the chorus for the song Willow, the lead single on it? Wreck My Plans, that's my man. Or another thing was, after she did an Entertainment Weekly or something like photo shoot in November, she was like wearing, it was like, she posted one of the pictures where she's wearing this outfit, and then she captions it on her story. She's like, wow, this outfit really screams, then in all caps, 'tis the damn season. So everybody was just like, wow, that's weird. Like, why is she so aggressive about it? What's a song on Evermore called? 'Tis the damn season. This happened, like, she does it. It's just, everybody always gets the wrong thing. Like, everybody hones in on the wrong thing.
She just loves playing her fans.
She does, and it's just like, what?
Oh my gosh.
But there are like some.
Oh my god. I was gonna say, I also remember, I forgot what it was, but she had like been vaguely hinting at something, and then it ended up being just a post about her being like, it's National Cookie Day, everyone who's baking cookies. And I remember,
yes,
that was the whole thing, because you were like, oh my gosh, what is it? What do you think it's gonna be? And I'm like, I don't know.
It was because of the horse post or something.
Yeah,
it was either the horse or the dice. It was like National Horse Day or National Dice Day is also the same day as National Cookie Day, so everyone thought she was gonna be doing something either with the, maybe it wasn't the dice, it might have been the horse, like, because it was National Horse Day. Everyone's like, oh my god, she's gonna do something on National Horse Day. Okay, this was the picture she said, like, this is part of the same photo shoot with the 'tis the damn season thing. She took a picture with the horse, and then also from that photo shoot was the, wow, this outfit screams 'tis the damn season. But everybody focused on the horse, and they were like, oh my god, National Horse Day, like, she's gonna do something. We looked at the wrong thing.
It was just an Instagram post of her holding a plate of cookies, being like, Happy National Cookie Day. Oh my god.
And I was just like,
I love that for her.
I know. I was just like, she literally does this on purpose. Like, and now, okay, so then as terms of like current stuff, so most recently, the one that people at least caught onto, I don't think she was really trying that hard to hide it, was like, because so there's her, but then there's also like her like marketing publicist team, whatever, is called Taylor Nation. So they do a lot of like the interacting with fans and stuff on social media. So both her, like, she's basically, since all the drama with Kanye and stuff happened in 2016 and she first went offline for like most of the year, like ever since then, after she came back with Reputation, I think she's just been kind of like a little more like, oh, I won't be as active on social media as I was like pre that. And especially since the pandemic started, she basically has just been gone from social media, so she doesn't really come on ever to say stuff. But the few things she was tweeting in the beginning of the year, she kept using, and her team was using at least a couple times. They put 2 yellow heart emojis, and so everybody was like, mysterious. Whoa. Everybody was like, yellow, and it's 2 fearless, because also the albums all have an official color, because she confirmed this fan theory. I think we watched the Lover music video once together, where it's like she's in the house with all the different colored rooms.
Okay, sure, yeah, I don't remember, but yeah.
Okay, but so there's, in the Lover music video, she's in this house with, and it's like she goes into all these different rooms that all have a different color theme, and because like people basically figured out that the color of the room plus what happens in the room alludes to a specific album and era of her life. So like, for example, there's a room in the house that's yellow, and then when she and the guy are in that room, the room is completely upside down. So people were like, it's yellow because that's Fearless, and that's her big break, so that's when her life turned upside down from fame. And then like 1989 is blue, so then in the blue room she was swimming around in a fishbowl that was like clear, and then people were like, it's 1989, it's like she's in a fishbowl because everybody's looking at all of her life and just completely analyzing her life, like watching her like she's a fish swimming around in a bowl. So she basically confirmed that theory. She was just like, yep, that's what I did. So
a lot.
Yeah, so her mind is operating at that level of meta all the time, apparently.
Cosmic.
Yeah, so anyway, that's all to say that confirms that Fearless equals yellow. So and of course 2 Hearts, everybody was like, second album. So then everybody was like, Fearless is coming.
What if you end up being completely wrong? The entire Swiftie fandom is like, oh, she played us again.
It's like, what? That's pretty much how it is now, because now the current thing that's been happening was, I think, last week, and then also after she won at the Grammys on last Sunday. Last week, Taylor Nation or like sometime since Love Story came out, I don't remember when, they like made something where they're like, wow, this has us floating on a balcony. And then after the Grammys, she like was posting about like, she posted this thing of like, oh, this is all for the fans, like, we feel like we're floating. So now everybody's like, oh my god, because Floating is gonna be one of the new songs on the new Fearless. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, that's pretty much how every day in Swiftie world goes, is anytime Taylor breathes, it's like some sort of Easter egg. Yeah, and then I have to say there were a couple people that did predict Evermore, like the second album thing. Like, they were like, she's about to drop another album. And a lot of people, including me, were like, I don't know, like she literally just released one like 4 months
It's
ago.
like
Like,
her brain must
what?
be like running like 100 miles an hour, just cranking all
I
these
know.
songs out.
Well, because it's like that. Plus, she was already working on re-recordings as of November too. Because then finally, when she did clarify that she was like, after Evermore came out, like she did this interview and she's talking about like, yeah, so like in the mornings I would be like recording like You Belong With Me, and then in the afternoon I go and like record like Champagne Problems, and I was like, how does your daily life work?
I
Like,
mean,
are
I
you
don't think
okay?
she sleeps really.
I don't
Doesn't
think she
sound
does
like it.
either. I don't know. So I was just like, all right, so you're just going for it. That's cool. I really wish I had her work ethic, I think is the main
I
thing.
do too. I have to
Like,
say, like Taylor Swift as an artist, because obviously she's been doing this since she was 15, and she's like what now? She's the age of 20,
31.
31. I thought she was still in her 20s.
Yeah.
Anyway,
She's born in 1989.
yeah, I don't know. I wasn't that didn't hit my head. But I just have to say, like, for someone to have an artist to have long standing a career as she has, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's so interesting to see the evolution of her music, because as we all know, she started in like country and she was like, okay, I want to like transition into pop now, and now, well, I don't know, I guess you could consider folklore and
It's
Evermore
like
to be kind of,
alternative.
yeah, like alternative, but also kind of folksy, I guess. I don't know how else
Yeah.
to describe it. I think it's like kind of showing that evolution of like she's not gonna pigeonhole herself to just one genre of art,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like she's growing up. You can tell like the sense of growth as she's growing from album to album, because it's always like a 180-degree turn going from like Reputation to like Lover
Yeah. Like the vibes.
to Folklore. Like it's just like it's like there are obviously she's been through a lot in her life, and it's pretty evident in the music shown and the aesthetic for each song or each
Mm-hmm.
album. So it's like I
I
appreciate the
know.
evolution of it all, because
It's so
even
inspiring.
though like I really like Taylor kind of like in her early days, like I think Madison caught on like what around like the Lover days.
Oh yeah. That was
Yeah.
like, okay, I feel like I have to explain why I'm here.
Okay.
Because how did we get here? How do you just get into Taylor Swift when you're,
When you're
how old was I, 21?
yeah.
And before that, I have been on the record before being not one of her biggest fans, but
hmm
like being kind of like, oh, she's
And now,
kind
I
of
mean, no one can see this because this is only audio, but Madison has a whole wall of
yes, of Taylor stuff.
Taylor stuff.
I bought a lot of things
So,
from Redbubble in quarantine.
yeah,
So
so I
how
even
did we
gave her
get
one of those.
here?
Yeah, so how did we get here, Madison? Like, what
Okay,
was the
well,
turn? What was the shift?
okay, well, so my impression of her before was like I always was just kind of like I feel like I'm too not white and not straight for this. So I would like specifically like during her like pop like the 1989 era and
hmm
stuff. Like I was kind of like I wasn't like, oh my god, I think she's a terrible person, or like some people's criticisms of her were like insane. Like people were like, she and her friends are so skinny they promote bad body image, and
Okay, I mean,
it's
it's a
like,
little bit of a
okay, first,
stretch.
oh, I was like, all right, but then also it's like, congrats. Taylor later confirmed like last year she had an eating disorder during that. She had like anorexia, so congrats for saying her like accusing her of that when she literally had an eating disorder. Okay, but anyway, so I don't know. I just and I like some of the things that I wasn't really into her about then I still think are things she needs to work on. Like I always thought like in like 1989 era, so this was like around the mid 2010s, I felt like she started to kind of be more like I'm a feminist, and I was like, okay, that's like cool or whatever. But I always felt like she was like very like, and I think she's still working on this kind of like in that white feminist territory of like being very like, oh, like just kind of like not surface level, but not kind of going as like deep as like a
Yeah,
lot of
I
other
mean,
people have, and
I
just being like women things.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when the song The Man came out, which I like the song, but when I watched the music video, I was like, man spreading is not the most important issue
Yeah.
when it comes to feminism right now, but you are a
Yeah.
white woman, so I see why you
It's
came
like
from there.
she's still a rich white woman at the end of the day, so I think that kind of like has stopped her from like some growth that like she feels a few years behind current feminist things still, and just like general things, but at the same time she also has done like a lot of the media things that I did believe about her back then turned out to, like, I learned in hindsight, were like not the case. Like, for example, and since we already covered, her old record label, she had this reputation in the 2010s and like of being so aggressive about copyright, and like there's this whole thing where like people got sued for their wedding video having her song, and then people on Redbubble got sued. And it's like, I look, because I saw somebody post something about this recently on social media, and when I looked into it, none of these people were sued. The most anybody got was like cease and desist, which is not being sued. And it wasn't her choosing to do all that. It was because she was at this aggressive record label that wouldn't even let her have her own music. So why were they going to let other people use it? Like, this is a lot of context was very, like, reporting on her was very selective with context and stuff. So it's like she was very much a victim, I would say, of media portrayal, in that a lot of things were spun very bad about her. And like with the whole her serial dating thing, it's like she just dated people. Like, I don't know, like I never was like, I was always just kind of like, okay. And then like her, as I listened to the rest of her music and read more about like whatever public things are about her relationships back then, it's like everybody's like, she profits off of like these heartbreaks. And it's like, I feel like most of her songs where she's like talking about stuff, it's because like the men in question like were objectively like terrible to her. Like she was actually a victim of the situation. Like, for example, on like a minor level, like I don't know the details of her and Joe Jonas's relationship, but I also remember after he dated Demi, he did the same thing to both of them, where he just broke up with them over the phone or over text. What is that? That's I'm like, I feel like that's objectively not great. So if she's heard about that, then cool, good for her. I'm glad she made some money off that, because that sucks. And then like you have like the whole things with her like dating John Mayer, who she still is not even the age that he was when she dated her when she was 19. So everybody just chew on that for a second and how gross that is. And also John Mayer was also terrible to like other women like Jessica Simpson. So I don't know why you can blame her for writing songs about that and making money off of that, but she was again very much a victim in that situation. Had like a full-on adult guy like basically taking advantage of the fact that she was literally still a teenager, even if it was just barely legal. And it's like, it's just like stuff like that. But also it's like, I just feel like with her and other women, like it's like, oh, they make these songs about breaking up with kids, and it's like, where is that energy for guys? Literally, when is the last time I listened to a song by a man that was not about literally the same thing? Not just the same thing of I was in a relationship and they hurt me. But for some reason, we only seem to really care about it when it's like women being the ones to be like, I'm the one saying I was hurt in this situation. And it's like, I think there is a thing of like, you shouldn't be putting like people on blast. And it's like Taylor doesn't name names when she talks about her songs. It's mostly just people who, since the media was obsessed with her life and studied every single thing she did, you could just put it together with like context clues because her whole life was so public. But she's not the one going around being like, this song is about this person, like whatever. People can argue whatever they want for like, naming a song Style after she dated Harry Styles. Like, I don't know if that whole story in that song has a relationship or not. Or her naming the song Dear John about John Mayer when Dear John letters is an actual term, an actual thing that exists. Like, it's just, why are we so obsessed with that? I don't get it. Yeah, but before I realized all that, I was kind of buying into the stuff of like, she just kind of makes her music, makes her money, and then F's off and doesn't really do anything. But then right before we started senior year, she released Lover, which is the first album that she actually owned because that was the first album she made with her new record label. So then I had been hearing all over Twitter about how good it was, and I had friends who were like really into it, so I was like, I guess I'll listen to it. And then I did, and I was like, oh, I actually really like this album. And it was basically like my soundtrack for the first few weeks of like senior year. And we all know how our senior year of LMU ended with everybody else with the pandemic. So mayhaps my brain wanted to romanticize that a little bit, because that was probably the beginning of the year was really the peak because of how it ended. So Lover was very much like a part of that time. So it had a very positive association in my brain. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of into this. And then her documentary with Netflix, Miss Americana, came out last year, like in around like January or something. And I like stuff about like musicians. Like I'll watch stuff even if it's not people I like stan or whatever. So I watched Miss Americana, and that was where I started to learn more of like her side of the whole like everything with the media over the years and stuff. And I was just like, okay, yeah, that makes more sense, and I see where she's coming from. It seems like she's like grown as a person too. So it's like I was like, okay, so she's like gone through this character development that I basically wanted from her for a while too. So I was like, okay, I can like get behind that. And then when quarantine happened, I was also taking a guitar class that semester, and again, her songs are so easy. Her songs are so easy to learn, so there was that where I was like, oh, I'll just learn her songs. But then also my mental health was so bad that I pretty much experienced what I would say are very much symptoms of hyperfixation. So then during the summer, I started being like, I should listen to more of her songs because I just need to cope with how terrible I feel all the time. So then I watched her Reputation concert on Netflix, and I was like, oh, Reputation's actually like a pretty good album. Like I really liked it. Now it's my second favorite album. So then I was listening to Reputation, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm like vibing, and I'll just like kind of get into her songs. Then Folklore dropped out of nowhere. Well, I already had one foot in the door. So just imagine this image of me with one foot in the door, and then all of a sudden the door slams shut behind me and pushes me all the way in. That is basically what happened when Folklore dropped, because I was already kind of like, and then just got shoved in full force, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'm in this
You're
now.
in all the way now.
I was like, I guess I'm in this now. And then I dragged other people down with me, like our friend Laurel. I was like, hey, Laurel, I can tell you what songs on Folklore are good. And she was like, I'll just listen to it myself. And then Laurel's emotionally just been in the Folklore woods since then. So I helped contribute to that too.
And to this day, Madison would just bring up her Swiftie Discord, being like, oh, I heard this from the Swiftie Discord. Just
yes,
like,
I'm in like multiple Swiftie Discord servers, which, is it embarrassing? I don't know. It's up to you. But because I run a Taylor Swift Tumblr blog, that's the real embarrassing part. Someday I'm going to date someone and have to tell them I run a Taylor Swift blog. And I'm going to have to admit that to them. And it haunts me every day. But we'll get there when we get there. Yeah. So, yeah, that was when I really think I was really experiencing, like, the height of, like, what would be considered like hyperfixation, because then I was like, oh my god, I need to buy like things that are Taylor. I bought Folklore on CD. Like I bought multiple CDs. I don't know the last time I bought a CD. There were like days where that was like, I was going like days where it's like this was the only thing on my mind all day was Taylor, her music, Folklore, learning how to make GIFs starting to pay for Photoshop so I could learn how to make GIFs, so I could make GIFs of Taylor Swift. Anytime I saw people, I just want to talk about Taylor Swift, this and that, which is like, at the same, as much as exciting as it was that I had like this new interest, it was just also very much like, I was always like, I know that I'm like a lot right now and I feel bad, but it's like, that's the thing about if you like experience any kind of like hyperfixation, hyperfocus type thing in your brain, it's like, you can't stop it. It's like your brain is just like, no, we're just only doing this right now. And that was like basically me for a couple months last year, where I was like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on, but it's fine. I think it's fine now, whatever. But so then I got really involved in like the fandom and stuff, which I have to say, I do think the fandom is terrible, especially on Twitter. I hate all of them. A lot of them are like racist and shit. Why? Like, I literally joined the fandom or I got more like kind of paying more attention to the fandom right after they had this whole thing where like LGBTQ plus stans were being doxxed by other stans. Like there's a lot of that stuff happening where I was just like, okay. So I still think the fandom overall is like pretty terrible, but I've also met some like cool individuals in it and joined this Discord server because part of why I was like, I need to join this fandom so I don't have to talk to innocent people in my life and bother them about this all the time. I was like, I need to find a different outlet. So yeah, so now I just exist on my Taylor Swift blog on Tumblr and just live my life.
Okay, well, drop the blog.
Okay, my Tumblr blog is I will not be disclosing that.
Oh.
You want it? You know what? If you want it so bad, you can DM me. I'm not putting it out there because I don't know who's going to be listening to this. But I only trust close friends who will hit me up for the blog. I mean, I've sent you screenshots from Tumblr before, and I didn't crop out my URL when I sent it to you, so you can go look at it. I know Laurel follows it. Trusted people are allowed into my Tumblr space.
Okay.
So people hit me up for it, and then I'll decide.
Ooh,
if you can have
there's a vetting process.
Yeah, I need to see who you are. But I mean, I'm assuming based on who probably listens to this, it'll be the people I would probably give it to anyway. But I just don't want it on the record for like 10 years from now. What if someone's like, oh my god, I'm gonna find their Taylor Swift vlog.
When Madison becomes big and famous and everyone digs through this old little podcast and they're like, oh, let's look up this blog.
Yeah. Okay, my thing is if I become bigger and famous, you know what the first thing I'm doing is? I'm deactivating every social media I have, and I'm starting from scratch. Because we're the generation that's basically had
Madison foot.
Yeah, well, not only that, but it's like, we're the generation who's, like, had these accounts since, like, middle school, high school, like, early adulthood, so it's like, do you want that to be with you when you're older and have some kind of success? Like, not even because I think I've done anything like terribly problematic. I just don't want my teenage self to be on blast for the whole world. That's a whole issue for another episode.
Well, you heard it here. Whereas when Madison becomes big and famous, you're not gonna be able to find anything from her younger self online.
No, I'm deactivating it immediately. Maybe I'll have like a marketing team that's like, oh no, it's fine. I'm gonna be like, no, it's going.
Watch out for the new accounts, the real Madison Foot.
The real Madison Foot, yes. Subscribe.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna leave it at that. Everyone go follow Madison's future accounts at the real Madison Foot.
I feel like those are already taken. There's a horseback riding person with my name. For anybody who ever Googles my name, that is what comes up. I'm not the horseback riding person, in case anyone was wondering.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing your information about Taylor Swift and everything. Not everything, because we didn't really go into more of her life that I'm sure is talked about more in Miss Americana.
Yeah, just read up on her, do some research. Oh, but then just for a last thing, in case anybody was curious, my top 3 albums are Lover, Reputation, and Evermore. And Folklore 1989 are tied for 4th. Everything else I don't know yet.
Okay.
In case anybody was wondering.
Okay, well, thank you for all of this enlightening information, for all the Swifties and all the people who are not Swifties.
Yeah, let's see how many people have not checked out in this episode. But I just wanted to spread my hyperfixation for everybody today.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
Yes. Thank you for everybody who's put up with this to get this long. I'm sure Laurel will, because I turned her into a Swiftie.
Okay, shout out to
And my friend
Laurel.
Serena will.
Okay,
also,
shout
Serena
out to Laurel
will.
and Serena.
She's also a Swiftie. Yeah, I don't know about anybody else, but if you do, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to another episode of Pineapple Headache. This episode has been...
Yes. Has it been a headache? I guess it's kind of...
Well, Taylor Swift has been through a lot, so all the things with the record labels have been a headache.
Listen to her music to heal your headache.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening.
And everybody stream Fearless, Taylor's version, on April 9th.
Mark the date. All right.
Yes. Okay, bye.
Goodbye.